In a world filled with screens and distractions, we invite you to reconnect with the natural world around you. Welcome to Nature Bound, a podcast dedicated to unpacking the intrinsic bond between humans and nature. We'll uncover the benefits of spending time outdoors, including how a nature-centric lifestyle can improve your mental health, elevate your leadership skills, and unleash your creativity. And now here's your host, outdoor enthusiast, and renowned author of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Nature Bound. Today we have an amazing guest who is a renowned artist and children's book author, and we'll get a chance to dig into to Bonnie's brain about the creative process, about nature, and about how to story tell complex things to kids. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Emanuel.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure to have a chance to talk with you. Thanks for spending some time here.
Of course.
Anything else you want to add about your bio? You have a pretty interesting award-winning history.
I think my background's a little unique because I have a background in exhibit design. That was kind of my first real job out of art school.
Yeah.
And that career lasted about 12 years. And I learned a lot about, taking complex information, sometimes scientific information, and sort of condensing it so that it could be understandable to young kids or, the general population that might just be breezing through a museum exhibit. So,
And not just any museum.
yeah, I was really fortunate. I got to work with some really cool organizations. I did some trade show work with NASA. We did a visitor center with NASA. I worked for the Office of Exhibit Central at Smithsonian Institution, and did some traveling shows for National Geographic. So yeah, I'm so lucky.
I bet you got to see a lot of interesting topics too, right? Like just things we can nerd out on.
Yeah, and a lot of nature stuff too. So
Yeah.
I always gravitated towards those projects. So,
Well, what is your earliest memory of being in nature?
gosh, probably when I grew up in North Carolina. We lived basically right in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains in this small town. And I know my mom would just sort of send us out to play and just wandering around in the woods and picking up rocks and seeing what was there under the rock and wandering down to the creek and catching tadpoles with our hands. I mean, these were giant tadpoles.
Especially the little kid, right?
Yeah. So yeah,
Um,
definitely those years.
that's cool. And then
Mhm.
I guess so. Then did your family? Were you like a camping family, or you guys just live close where you go on hikes and?
Absolutely not. No, we're not a camping family.
Yeah,
I love to camp. I think I'm the only one in my family who loves to camp, and that
yeah.
didn't come for me until later, as an adult when I started to explore those things. Yeah, my parents, and my mom was a teacher, and my dad was an architect, and they pretty much grew up in the city,
Right.
so
Yeah.
they were city kids. And so when we took this 5-year hiatus to North Carolina, it was a total culture shock for them, for
Oh,
sure.
funny. Yeah.
For me as a little kid, I was just like, wow, this is great. But
Yeah.
then we'd come home with, frogs in our pockets and stuff, and mom and dad would be like, "Ah!" you know, "That back where you found it."
Well, how did you get into this vein of illustrating and writing the children's books?
I've always wanted to. Even when I was little, I sort of wrote this thing that said, when I grow up, I want to write books for children. And
Yeah.
so I always knew it was there in the background. But I guess I never had the confidence to just try it. and go for it. I also probably didn't have the time, because it does take a lot of time and
Yeah.
to sit down and create your story and then have enough faith in it to go through that whole process of getting publishing, which is honestly excruciating. If if no one knows about the publishing industry, it's very slow and it's very competitive. So you really have to stick to your guns and, stick with it and don't give up on yourself or your stories and see it through.
Yeah, I mean the story of perseverance and then avoidance of all the charlatans. That is the publishing world for sure. Well, I mean, you're interesting in that you're both writing the stories and then illustrating the stories. And so, which comes first, the chicken or the egg on that?
Well, I do illustrate for other authors too, but when I'm working on my own, it's kind of a toss up. So usually it's the story first, but sometimes I might like sketch the character first if I have
Hmm.
a main character in mind. So yeah, it kind of can go either way. I know, like, once I get my first draft finished, what I like to do is the down and dirty dummy, which is basically just on
Yeah,
copy paper, and I take like a Sharpie pen and just really quickly like sketch out the entire book, and it's super rough and
yeah,
ridiculous looking, but it definitely helps me like see that, oh, these ideas are coming together and it can become a book someday.
right. Wow. And then, well, how do you like balance the like all the digital interaction, but the natural themes, and keep all
Hmm.
that clear in your head or creative process?
Yeah, yeah, I know my work ends up being very digital at the end, but in the beginning process, it's very much hands-on, and I'm using the pen and the pencil and just sketching things and, shading with my thumb, smudging stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's important to have that hands-on interaction in the beginning when you're still trying to formulate your thoughts. But then once you're trying to make that publish or that final polished product for the book, I do tend to rely on the digital tools for that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it speeds up the whole process of getting it published and pushed out to the world,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, the digital tools are very forgiving, and you can, erase over your mistakes very easily. So.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges that you're finding in connecting nature, which is so far removed from our culture, and bringing it into tactile intellectual tools?
Um, yeah, I think, you know, I grew up in a place where nature was very much a part of my everyday life. But then later, my family moved to suburban Washington, D.C., and, things were very different there. So, very populated area and continues to grow. And I think even the town that, I grew up in, I think that even that town has expanded and grown the last time I went to visit it. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, wow, I remember that there weren't houses here last time and it was just all forest. So, yeah, I'm trying to grapple with my own upbringing and having been, more having nature more accessible to me, to, you know, talking to kids where, maybe they just don't have that same access, and trying to get them to, go out of their way and take a little extra time to spend some time in nature and enjoy it.
No, I'm glad that you're doing that, and you have kids of your own,
I do, yeah. I have two sons.
and so you read a lot of books to them, I'm sure, which gave you some of these
Oh, yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, and I think that really was the catalyst for story started making this transition into children's books. As I had my own kids, and, I was a stay-at-home mom, so I was spending a lot of time at the library and bringing books home for them, and they loved having me read books to them. So yeah, that really like sort of planted the seed and made it blossom. I was like, "Oh, okay, it's time. I need to start doing this because this just looks like too much fun." But now my kids are teenagers, so it was it's been a long time.
Yeah, right. It was a stage for them, and now they're through it, and they're on to sports and some other things, I'm sure.
Right, right.
Yeah. Well, how much?
I read them my
Oh,
book now, and they're like, "It's okay for a little
yeah,
kid," you know?
yeah, right. Yeah, whatever, mom. When you're writing these books, how much of the story is for the parent, and how much is for the kid? And are you bringing dimension into it like that?
Yeah, yeah, I do like to try to, you know, approach all audiences, because it could be, a teacher too who's reading to their
Right.
classroom. So I try to incorporate some kind of informational text in all of my books because I want kids to learn too, and I
Yeah.
think it's a great way to work with teachers to have them be able to, incorporate your picture book, your art piece into their curriculum and be able to, you know, get to some kids who may be struggling to follow the instructions, and maybe by bringing out a colorful picture book that relates to the topic might get them a little more excited about learning. So that's the hope.
Yeah. Yeah. And you think about, at least for me, I think about things like little interactions I had with a math teacher, or,
Yeah.
some tiny little comment that a teacher made or my parents made, and how that like triggered a whole rabbit hole
Yeah.
of interest and exploration. So I really applaud that vein of thinking. And that's what I try to do in my books also, is make sure that if I bring in an animal, that the story of that animal is accurate as much as
Mhm.
possible, while still being approachable for the age.
Right.
That's correct.
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's cool. So you've got a couple books coming out. The one I'm most interested is the book about the quail. So
Okay.
tell me about that book.
Yeah. Well, Quail Trail is it's informational fiction, but it's heavy on the fiction. So I do have talking animals. I've got this little quail chick who her name is Roxy, and she is very independent minded and thinks that, she doesn't have to listen to Top Knot, the troop leader, who's the adult quail in the
Love it.
story. And they're
Yeah.
getting ready to hike, and Top Knot's going over the rules and stuff. And Roxy's just like, you know, looking at ants crawling around. She's wandering off, chasing a butterfly. She's really not paying attention at all to, what's supposed to keep her safe.
Right.
And so, yeah, she's like, trying to get the other quail chicks to run off with her. Hey, let's hide from Top Knot and stuff like that. And, she's the little troublemaker. But yeah, it's just a way to sort of talk about quail because I love them and I think they're really fun to watch. Their
For sure.
antics are very animated anyway, and they're just hilarious to watch, like crossing the trail, like because they're just like they seem to just levitate across the trail, like you can't
Yeah.
even. They're running so fast you can't see their feet, right?
Yeah.
And they're not really prone to flying. They can only fly little bits, and especially the chicks, they haven't even learned how to do that. So they just like choom, fly fly run everywhere they go, and they're just so cute. So just taking like these little characters and sort of personifying them and trying to, develop a story that might be relatable to kids, and kids who are in the classroom and who may not be behaving, or, trying not to listen to the teacher and trying to cause trouble, and just helping them understand, that these rules are here for a reason. They're here to keep us safe, and that's what we want in the end, is everyone to be okay.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that, I mean, I call it the values clarification, right? We want to have these stories that are taking the kids in a direction that's a positive contribution to society.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And then it triggers the interest in the animals and the birds,
Right.
and so
Mhm.
yeah, that's amazing. And
And I
then
know a lot of people raise quail too, so,
yeah.
it's not like it's a species that is isolated to a certain region. People can raise them, farm
Yeah, I
raise
think they're pretty much all the way spread through the entire United States. And
them.
are you
Mhm.
still in Southern Nevada?
Yeah,
So
uh-huh.
you've got quail down there.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Lots of them.
I
Mhm.
have some in Reno. I consider it my little my own covey because they're in the
Yeah.
backyard, and they sit up on the fence and then they fly back to the slough, and it is very fun just to watch and see what they do.
Yeah, and the way they talk to each other is
Right.
just so fun. So that's integrated into the story too. Um, so originally the story was called Chicago because of the sound they make when they're calling to each other. It's like
Okay.
Chicago, Chicago.
That's awesome.
That's how Roxy got her name. But
I love it.
but yeah, Quail Trail was just too cute a title not to stick with that one.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I did the same thing with the Secret of the Grouse, which the grouse's deal is they sit still, and that's their first line of defense.
Uh-huh.
That they don't make any movement, and so a lot of
Oh,
times they look
yeah.
like a stick or a rock.
Right.
And so trying to get the kids the idea that it's okay to sit still, and eventually that they could think about things and even eventually meditate, right? So that directionality
Okay, yeah, I
from an
like that.
early age.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so, and you have a second book that's coming out in time for Christmas, right?
Mhm. Yeah, Wonder of
Which
the
one's that?
Woods, and, it's being co-published by The Little Press and One Little Earth. So this is a new, venture with the 2 together, and One Little Earth is basically it's a nonprofit organization that funds projects for young people, um, to help inspire a love for nature. So
Nice.
and they give away a lot of these books, to schools and kids. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and you said that was a chapter book.
No, it's a picture book.
It's a picture book too.
Mhm,
Okay, cool,
mhm. Yeah,
nice. And
yeah.
did you write and illustrate that both?
Yeah, I did, and that one really is based on my experience of growing up in North Carolina. So it's a little girl who's out exploring the woods near her house, and she's following the animal tracks and paying attention to movements. And so it's kind of like, how do you experience nature without being disruptive to their environment and what's going on with them? So like being quiet and you know, treading carefully and just spending time watching and waiting. And so,
I
yeah, it's
love
kind
it.
of a cool story.
Yeah, no, and important messaging about how to participate, right, in the natural world.
Yeah, without harming it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I know it's a big process to give birth to two books. What do you have that's coming up after these two?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, so I have my series of Sea Smiles. So Sea Smiles is the first. This one came out this February. And then I have two more coming out that follow this theme of childhood milestones and strange sea animals. That's
Nice.
that's kind of
Okay.
the combo. So
Yeah.
very much informational fiction. The second one is going to be Sleepy Sea, and I'm working with the publisher right now to just get that finalized. That'll be coming out in the spring. And then the following spring will be the third in the series called Sea Suds. And that one is more about, hygiene and taking care of yourself and taking baths, but also like how do sea animals take a bath? That's
Right.
interesting topic for kids, right?
For sure.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah.
it gets them, yeah, being those animals in the bathtub, and that way they're getting clean and
Yeah.
learning something, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And I also have Dexter, the stand-up dog. I'm going to be co-writing and illustrating that one. That one's getting close to the end of production. That should be coming out next fall. Um, yeah. So yeah, and then I have a couple illustration projects coming up. So where I'm just illustrating other people's books, and that's always fun too. Totally different experience, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. The work that you're doing in triggering kids and parents and teachers to be aware of nature is
Hmm.
critical work, and I thank you for that contribution for all
Yeah,
of us.
absolutely. It's a pleasure.
If people want to find your work, how do they find your work or get in touch with you?
Yeah, bonniekelso.com is my website. And I have all my books listed there. My social media handles are there. My agent link is there. I have a great agent, Liz Nealon at Great Dog Literary. So she handles all my contracts and paperwork and all that kind of stuff, which is awesome.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's say last question is bucket list adventure, unlimited budget. Where does Bonnie Kelso
Oh
go?
man, probably Patagonia.
All right, good.
I just want to get out there, get down there, get like really remote and just experience that lack of human contact. That would just be so amazing to me. It's been a long time since I've done some, backpacking like that, but I would be totally up for it with an unlimited budget.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm with you. That sounds good.
I'd hire a personal trainer, get back in shape.
Train in advance of going on your trip.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. So I
Very
can
sequential.
enjoy it as much as possible. Yeah. How about you? What's your bucket list? Where do you want to go?
I would get dropped in the wilds of Kamchatka, Russia. It'd be 6 or 8 weeks. I do the whole season in Kamchatka.
Oh wow!
For bird hunting and fly fishing.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Cool. I think the political tensions have to calm down a little bit for that trip.
You might not come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Be careful.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate your time, Bonnie. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And I look forward to reconnecting with you in 6 months or so and see what else you got going on.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be great.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Nature Bound. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to purchase your copy of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock at EmanuelRose.com or on Amazon. We thank you again for joining us today, and remember to get nature bound.